Hi, this is Ned Siegfried from Siegfried and Jensen. As proud sponsors of BeliefCast, we hope you are inspired by Todd's weekly podcasts, which contain so many courageous stories of recovery and personal growth. Remember, it's not what happened in the past that matters, it's what happens in the future. We invite you all to work hard and be optimistic about your future. Enjoy today's podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Todd Sylvester with the Todd Inspires BeliefCast. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I love you guys, and I can't thank you enough for supporting me and believing in me. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Wasatch Recovery, Siegfried and Jensen, Thread Wallets, and the beautiful music you heard at the beginning and at the end of this episode is by Paul Cardall. He's a award-winning pianist, and he's a good friend as well. So I'm thankful for him. And today we are joined by Kathryn Jarrett. Kat, thank you for joining us today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we've been trying to do this for a long time.
Too long to want to admit, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm glad we're finally doing this. You guys are in for a treat today. Kathryn has lived a life that is very inspiring, and the way she carries herself, but it wasn't always like that. And you're going to get to hear from her firsthand. But Kathryn is an author, speaker. She's a sober entrepreneur. She's a branding coach. She says she was saved by grace. She's a mom. She does one-on-one stuff. She speaks to large groups. She's getting ready to launch a podcast. She's writing a book. She's doing all these amazing things. And more importantly, I mean, you guys are going to feel her energy and her love for being clean and sober. I mean, she is passionate about it. And I just love watching your posts because, you know, sometimes you're dancing, sometimes you're, you get really serious when you need to. You also have fun with it. And anyway, I'm just grateful that you're on the show today.
Thank you so much. That intro made me cry, to be honest.
Yeah.
When you said, she carries herself with grace or whatever you said, it wasn't always like that. And I had a flashback to kind of when it wasn't like that. I didn't have dignity and grace, and I do today. And it's a beautiful gift.
Yes.
So again, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, why don't we start with tell us, our listeners, a little bit about your childhood, where you grew up, and a little bit about your family.
Yeah, absolutely. So I live in Massachusetts, about a half hour south of Boston. I do have an accent. You'll hear that throughout the interview, I'm sure. About a half hour south of Boston, and a beautiful little suburb. My parents loved each other. They loved us very much. I have an older sister and a younger brother. We were raised so well. My childhood was beautiful. Summers going up to New Hampshire, on the Cape. We had a family cottage on the Cape. We had a boat. Church every Sunday. My father was a Eucharistic minister, the Catholic church in town. Yeah, raised Catholic, and played sports, had yard sales on Saturdays and fun. And it was beautiful. It really was a beautiful childhood. And I'm grateful for that. And I was raised with values and morals and support and boundaries. And again, my parents were just great, and I'm really grateful for that. And unfortunately, my father, when I was 14 years old, I was getting ready to go to school. I was a freshman in high school. And I realized I left my toothbrush in his bathroom. So I went to go into his bathroom. I knocked on the door and I said, Dad, I got to get my toothbrush. And I heard a crash, and I opened the door, and he had collapsed out of the shower. He had had a cardiac event, a ventricular arrhythmia. And long story short, a week later, he passed away.
Wow.
So that was immensely sudden. I was a freshman at a private Catholic school in the next town over, and I was on the varsity soccer team as a freshman. He had been my soccer coach my whole life. I didn't mention that, but he was so proud of me. He would leave work early to sit and watch my soccer practices. That's how proud he was of me. And in an instant, our family changed. And my brother was 12, I was 14, my sister was 16. And looking back, we all did the best that we could, but we all coped in different ways.
I mean, at 14, you don't even know how to even handle stuff like that. And how did you cope? Like, what were some of the things that you tried to figure out going through that?
Yeah, so it didn't really hit me until March when I made the varsity softball team, and I came home and he wasn't there to tell. And
man.
he just took so much pride in my achievements and my academics. I was always strong academically, and he was a math wizard. He got like a perfect score on his SAT. So I took a lot of joy in making him proud of me. And he was proud of me for being kind and all the things
Yeah.
as well. But so the way I coped is I became an unapologetic perfectionist, and it was all self-driven. Nobody else put
Yeah.
pressure on me.
Yeah.
My mom had to go back to work full time so that we didn't lose the house. So it
Jeez.
was truly my own doing. I just, an A- wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
MVP of the soccer team, captain of soccer, softball my senior year, and I got a full ride to Northeastern in their physical therapy program. So I put so much pressure on myself, and looking back, it seems really healthy, right? Like we commend that with teenagers, but oftentimes it's an unhealthy coping mechanism that they're, putting on themselves, and it's detrimental to their emotional well-being.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure our listeners are, feeling the weight of what that was like at that young of an age, and can understand the struggle. And, like you said, families just try to figure out how to cope, and for your mom to even go back full time to work to save the house. And, you probably had a lot of alone time, downtime, and things like that. And, but yeah, so that happens, you work through those kind of things, I guess, as best you guys can. Did that affect you too, as you went through high school? You're, always maybe looking, and dad's not there to see these, things that you're doing.
Yeah, it was a void. It was,
Yeah.
and still today it was a void. It's a void. And I remember on the soccer field one time I looked over, and he had a big bald spot. He was Greek and had this giant bald spot in the back of his head, overweight, just jovial guy.
Yeah.
And I looked on the sideline and I saw another dad with a bald spot, and it makes me emotional now thinking of it. I thought it was him, and it was hard. It was hard. And but again, we still had a really good life. My mom loved us, our kids. My brother coped a different way, and maybe I'll get into that in a minute. And my sister coped in her own way. But overall, I still had a good teenage years, and I had some great friends. I had some really great, a small network of friends. I never had these large groups. I really just like to have a couple really good friends, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you want to, do you want to share with how your brother coped? Is that appropriate right now? Is that okay?
No, it's appropriate. I actually have this right here.
Yeah.
So my younger brother, David, when he was about 17, he broke his ankle and was prescribed OxyContin. So you probably know where the story's going to go. And before then, he had experimented with alcohol, and, me as being the older sister, protective, like, I was worried about him, but this really accelerated quickly. And he'd get the refill, and then it went from there. By the age of 19, the poor thing had gone to heroin. And he did experience years of sobriety in his 20s. He was clean and sober and amazing and healthy, and walked me down the aisle when I was 27. He was 24. Wow. So he did have some really great years of sobriety. But unfortunately, that strong addiction and eventual mental illness that came along with a result of all the drugs that, just enter the picture, they enter the playing the game. It led him to really struggle in life, and life was hard for him. And this past year, he was doing great. He was clean, sober. He was working with some people that were helping him get housing. He had just been approved for housing, and he was back in our lives. And after about a decade of me not having him in my life because of this disease, I have two boys now, ages 9 and 11. And, I did what I had to do to protect them, just, as a mom. And me personally, it was hard to let somebody back in and, get your heart broken again. But this past year, he had Thanksgiving with us and Christmas, and came to hockey games with me in January. And right now, during this interview, it's April. So this was about 3 months ago. And suddenly one day he wasn't returning our text messages. And we got the phone call from the detective that he had been found. And he, and I say, it's interesting because the last time I was with him, and this will resonate probably with some of your listeners, is just something really powerful that I'll never forget. I was dropping him off, and he was getting out of the car, and it was so awesome to talk to my brother about recovery. And, you know, I sit here today with you and I have 5 years of continuous sobriety by the grace of God.
Yeah.
And it was so awesome to talk to him about what I'm learning and what I live. And he had so much wisdom, and he was so proud that he had been to over 1,000 meetings. And he told me that. And he went to get out of the car, and he was living in this long-term homeless shelter. Again, he had been approved for an apartment. And I said, "Hey, David," I'm like, "Do you have a big book? Do you have a big book?" And he said,
Yeah.
he said, "I used to, but I lost it somewhere along the way. I just have the small pocket one." And I reached into my console because I had one in my car. I don't even know why I had it with me. It was literally in my car for years because I had another one I was using. And I said, "Here, I want you to have this." And I folded down pages 83 and I folded down page 419. And I said, "Read these every morning."
Yeah.
And I handed it to him, and he was so grateful. And, you know, after he passed away, I thought to myself, you know, he's not the first person to die of this disease next to a big book, and he's not going to be the last. And
Right.
it makes me so grateful that I'm here. And I struggle with not letting that survivor's guilt get to me, because I know that's not where I want to be, and that's
Sure.
not where David would want me to be.
Yeah.
But it is a beautiful thing that we had the time we had this year
Yeah.
to be able to connect on that level. And he knew he was loved, he was welcomed, he was understood. In his final days, he knew all of that, and that's really beautiful.
Yeah. What was his name?
David
David.
Chiros. David
Yeah.
Chiros. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for sharing that. I know that's hard, and my heart goes out to you. And a shout out to David. We're here to honor you. I know you're making me emotional by sharing this. I feel for you on so many levels. I have clients and friends who have all died from this, and it's really tough to watch that. But I'm so glad you're here, honestly, Kat, and the
Thank
things
you.
that you're doing. So I know we jumped ahead just a little bit, but so thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. Let's go back a
Yeah.
little bit more where we pick up, you're going through high school, you're missing your dad, obviously.
Mhm.
And, let's get to where, because you've had your struggles as well. And let's kind of talk
Right.
about that a little bit.
Yeah, and I just want to hop back to something about David before I
Sure.
forget.
Please.
But he, one of the conversations we had is he hopped on my Instagram, and he was like, "Whoa," because he when he got healthy this year, he's like, "I feel like I just crawled out from under a rock," and he's like,
Yeah.
"What are you doing on Instagram? How do you have that big following and everything?" And I
Yes.
told him that I share about recovery, and his mind was blown, and he was so proud of me. And it was so
Yeah.
nice to hear, because a lot of people don't understand what we do and why we share all the details and the intimate
Right.
things about our battles and our recovery, but he understood it. And so that was really beautiful. So in high school, I got hurt on the soccer field my senior year and had to go to physical therapy. And that physical therapy got me back on the field before the final tournament. So I was like, well, I'm going to be a physical therapist now, because I wanted to be a doctor, but that just seemed too much. And I knew I wanted to be a mom. So a physical therapist is what I went for. I applied to a few schools. Northeastern accepted me into their doctorate of physical therapy program on a full scholarship. So I went there, and I believe that freshman year I had, it's interesting because I had dabbled with alcohol in my, high school years, but I was always the responsible friend. I had friends that were doing other types of drugs and things. And I was always the one driving. I was always responsible. I didn't like the way alcohol made me feel. I didn't like to be unsteady on my feet or not be in control of my thoughts or my words. Sorry, I just have to decline a call here. So I was always the responsible one. And in college, the same thing. I drank a little bit, but it really never really did anything for me. I just had a few and then would stop. And then I tried a party drug in college and immediately felt euphoric, weightless, calm, just joyous and free. And that feeling was what I was chasing all of my teenage years, when I was not comfortable in my own skin, not comfortable in my own story, not comfortable in my own truth and environment. I was chasing perfectionism, and that to feel okay, because that I could control that. And then when the drug hit my system, I just felt euphoria, and it was what I had been craving. And unfortunately, I got into the wrong crowd in college. I found a drug dealer and started dating him. And he ended up being quite abusive in all the different ways someone could be abusive. And I had to call campus security one morning to escort me to my 8 a.m. class. And the officer came to my dorm and he said, "Why am I escorting you to your 8 a.m. class? Like, the service is for people at 2 a.m., you know?" And I
Yeah.
said, well, I'm trying to break up with my boyfriend and he's stalking me. And the officer, thank God, said, "We're not going to your 8 a.m. class." I'm like, "No, I need to get to class." Like, I still really did well in my academics.
Right. Yeah.
And he said, "We're going to the Boston police station. You're filing a restraining order." And we did. And we appeared in court a week later and I was approved for a year-long restraining order.
Yeah.
But the drug use didn't stop. And I didn't drink really all that much. It was just the drug use on the weekends. And I still did really well in school. I graduated undergrad, bachelor's and master's with about a 3.9. I ended up eventually in my 30s getting my doctorate degree. That's a long story. The college wasn't approved when I went, and then I had to go back for my doctorate, but I did. And I got a 4.0 in my doctorate. So I always did really
Wow.
well.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So, but I would party from Friday at 3 p.m. and then until Sunday night. And then I'd be in my 8 a.m. class on Monday morning.
Wow.
And so through college and into when I graduated college, it was just more of that drug use. And when I was about 24, I started hanging around with people that drank a lot because what I like to do kept me up at night, and then everyone else was drinking. So it worked out great. I wasn't, I was kind of surrounded by people still partying. I just was doing it a different way.
Yeah.
Until that really took a turn for the worst. And I, at that time I was a licensed physical therapist. I worked in a hospital. I worked in ICUs. I helped people out of bed who had been in comas for 3 months. And then, on the weekends I was doing all this crazy stuff to my body and everything. And one night it was really, really scary. And I'm writing a book right now, and I get into the details of it in my book.
Okay.
And if you want to be on the wait list for my book, there's a link in my bio on Instagram that you can hop on the wait list, but that'll be shared in about probably 2024. We'll publish that. But
nice.
One night really did it. And after that, I said, you know what? Because all week long I would say, I'm not doing drugs this weekend. I'm not going to do it. And then once I had a drink, I immediately wanted the next thing.
Yeah.
It's like my brain chemistry immediately, it was a craving that I could not ignore.
Yeah.
And that craving just was so strong that I would do it. And so I thought to myself, the only way I can stop using this drug is if I stop drinking. And I knew, because I had friends in a 12-step program already, I knew that it worked for them. So I found myself driving to Rhode Island, a different state, to go to 12-step meetings because I didn't want anyone to see me around here. I drive 5 towns away, and it worked. And I didn't drink for 3 months. I stayed sober and therefore clean that whole summer until one of my friends said, "Hey, maybe you can drink without doing that drug now." And I said, "Yeah, maybe you're right. I'll try." And sure enough, I drank, didn't want the drug, but my drinking immediately accelerated, and I was
over,
blackout drinker immediately. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're a very passionate person. I'm sure you've heard that before. And, it's, you seem, correct me if I'm wrong, you're a very determined person as well. And I think that is obviously a gift, but if it's used in the wrong direction, it's almost like, when you do anything, you go all in. Is that accurate?
It is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no different with maybe even drinking and partying. It's like, once your mind's on that and you're laser focused on that, that's the direction you're going to go, and nothing's going to stop you.
Right. I never wanted the party to be over. The sun was coming up, and I'm frustrated because the sun was coming up.
Yeah. You're like, oh no. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how long does this go on before you start going, you know what, something's got to change here. I've got to do something different.
Yeah. So that was when I was about 24, 25, and I was married at 27. And I ran the Boston Marathon when I was 29 and was able to shut it off. And I drank a few times a week, but always blacked out every time, and woke up with bruises, didn't know where my purse was, just a mess. But then I'd go to work all week, and, I could shut it off, and I trained for the Boston Marathon, ran that, and then got pregnant about a month later and had my first child, Charlie, who is now 11. And I wanted a home birth. I wanted it very natural and I feel like part of the reason I wanted a home birth and to have a totally natural birth is because I knew I had spent so many years and moments totally out of touch and out of control of my body and in a blackout. And I wanted to be fully present. I was afraid that if the doctors in the hospital gave me something that I reacted to, I would not be present for the birth of my child, which I knew that I would always regret. So I did home birth, and I was a great mom. I am a great mom, but I was a great mom to him. And then 2 years later, I had my next child, Nikki, and he was a home birth as well. And both beautiful, safe home births. And when they were about 2 and 4, my drinking started to really escalate again. So it was almost like I was just and I'm grateful because I hear stories of women who weren't able to turn it off when they were pregnant. And, and I don't judge that at all because I know the disease, but I'm really grateful that I was able to be a present and sober mom for those pregnancy years and early years and nursing and everything. But then when it took off again, it did. And, I found myself, I was in a marriage that wasn't really working anymore. We're divorced now, and we still have total respect for each other and love and do great job co-parenting, but the marriage wasn't working. And so I found myself coping with alcohol, coping with the anxieties and pressures of motherhood with alcohol and all the things. When I was 37, so 2017, my alcohol use just really, what happened is I never drank at home. I always only drank outside the house.
Interesting.
And my husband at the time was a police officer, so he worked the 4 to midnight shift. In August of 2017, I started drinking at home. And then my drinking just all of a sudden catapulted. It was like overnight just took off. And I'm just going to make sure my computer is not going to die here. My charger. Sorry.
Good.
So my drinking catapulted, and I found myself drunk driving quite a bit, and putting myself in really dangerous positions quite a bit. And, and I had 2 young kids at home, and it just was really scary and really dangerous. And I had one night when I was drunk driving, I had a bad thing happen, and I get into that in the book as well. And something really bad happened when I was driving one night, and can you hear me? No, wait.
I can't. Yeah, I can now. Yeah.
Wait. Okay.
You're good. Can. Yep. I can't hear you now. There we go. Now it's working.
Sorry, everyone.
You're good.
My computer was going to die. So I woke up the next morning and called my best friend who was in a program of recovery. And I said, I need help. And she said, I know you do. And she was on my doorstep an hour later. And that was October. I wasn't able to stay sober through the holidays that year. But January 1st, 2018, by the grace of God and the help of others and my willingness to ask for help and do the work, is my sobriety date. So I really started to surround myself with people who I knew would be supportive of my, new kind of requirement. Like I couldn't be around alcohol at the beginning and everything. And I just really surrounded myself with people who understood, who supported me. And
Wow. And so you're 5 years clean and sober. Is that correct?
Yes, a little over 5 years. Yeah.
Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That is amazing. Yeah. And I'm really impressed with you and the way you carry yourself. Like I said, I mean, and the beautiful thing too about, unfortunately having to go through some really difficult things, but then what you're doing now, you're the founder of A Pretty Balance, which I want to talk about as well. You're, like I said, you're so passionate about being clean and sober. And if anyone looks at your Instagram in 5 minutes, they're going to go, man, this woman's on fire. Right?
Yeah.
And so let's, before we get to your company and what you're doing, you did a post a little, I was not too long ago. It was actually back in December. And I really loved it because I even shared it with some of my clients, because I thought, man, I loved what you put down, and it's things you can do to stay clean and sober. I don't know if you remember that. And one of them was on there is write a daily gratitude list. And you hear this a lot in recovery, how important that is. Mm-hmm. Do you mind just sharing your thoughts about that? And then just, maybe why gratitude has helped you so much through all this?
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually was going to bring that up if you asked me for any advice for your listeners, was my morning routine, which includes the gratitude list.
Yeah,
And
we're
at
going to get
first,
to that.
yeah. But when you think about gratitude, it's sometimes your first instinct to be grateful for the big things. Like, I'm grateful
Yeah.
for my house. I'm grateful for my car and all this stuff.
Mhm.
But it's also very important to be grateful for the small things that are right in front of you that you often overlook.
Yeah.
So, the health of my children, my desk, my office, my cup of coffee, my comfortable bed, my warm bed,
Yeah.
and I've learned in recovery that a grateful heart will never drink.
Mm.
And so to maintain that sense of gratitude takes you out of fear. It's impossible to be grateful and afraid at the same time. And I battle a lot of, or I have battled a lot of feelings of fear and anxiety and worry and stress, but gratitude just melts that away.
Yeah.
And so one thing to do, my recommendation for people who are trying to stop drinking, is just identify things that you're grateful for.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to stay sober one day at a time, at the end of the day, be grateful that you made it through the day.
Yeah.
Clean and sober. And when I wake up in the morning, I throw my pillow on the ground and I drop to my knees and I say a prayer and I thank God for my sobriety. And I ask my higher power, who I call God, to keep me away from a drug, drink, or substitute just for one more day.
Yeah.
Allow me to use my strengths to serve others. Allow me to see the truth in situations. That one's huge. To allow me
Yeah.
to see the truth in the situations, and please make it so others see the truth in the situation. And just start my day off just with a positive aura and being
Yeah.
very intentional about what you want out of the day.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Thank you.
Yeah.
You mentioned, you saying a prayer, and how is your faith and, your commitment to serving your higher power, which you call God, which I think is awesome. How has that helped you, if you don't mind sharing that? Obviously you were raised Catholic and that kind of thing. Talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah. When I came into recovery, a higher power was not something unfamiliar to me. It wasn't something scary. It wasn't something like I was
Mhm.
repelling or didn't feel like I could adopt. But it
Yeah.
was something that I was missing. I didn't, and I was raised Catholic, and I never had a really great personal relationship with my higher power, with God and his hand in my life. And although I don't go to the Catholic Church now, I am practicing Christian, and I'm
Right.
very grounded in my faith. And I've found that the church that I now go to speaks to my heart. And I think that's
Yeah.
really important when you are in any organized religion, is that you need something that's going to speak to your heart. And
Yeah.
Sunday mass on Easter, I was crying, and so that's when you're in the right
Yeah.
place.
For sure. Yeah.
But
Right.
and I feel like earlier in my recovery, I just wasn't there yet. I wasn't there to allow God in. And
Mhm.
he's there, but he has to be sought. And it says in the book, faith without works is dead. And
Yes.
you constantly have to work on your faith. I just
Love that.
started my steps this year after 5 years, and I've said I'm in a 12-step program, and I watched this woman and the way she carried herself and her sobriety, and so strong. And I knew she did the steps, and I knew she worked with women to help them through the steps, but I was afraid to ask her. I finally asked her. I'm on step 4. I'm doing my writing, and it's taken me about 10 months, and it'll probably take me 10 months more to finish all of them, which is fine. But
Yeah.
through this process is where I really have been learning to know God and allow him into my life and allow him to walk with me through things, and not approach struggle and obstacles is like me not getting my way. Cause that's
Right.
one of my defects here, is if I don't get my way, I kind of, I turn into a different person. And that's
Yeah.
based pretty much on losing my dad at such a young age. Like, I didn't get what I wanted. I didn't have a
Yeah.
dad, So it goes back to that. But, I read a book every morning. It's called Jesus Calling. And
Mm.
it's just a daily meditation or affirmation thing, but it's based on biblical passages. And I just feel like the more I move through those steps, the more I'm really, really learning to learning to recognize and believes the word, that God
Yeah.
truly is with me. And he's even the situation with my brother. And I said, even when he passed away, in my tears, I said, God orchestrated this whole thing. I was not
Yeah.
angry with God. I understood that there was a reason why David came back into my life at Thanksgiving. There was a reason why we invited him to that table, why he was with us at Christmas, why we had those conversations. And, you know, he passed away in his bed, comfortable, knowing he was loved. And it could have been different over the years. He, you know, didn't always have a bed, and it could have been very different. And God orchestrated that beautiful last months of his life. And it makes me emotional because I'm able to meet such a devastating time in my life with so much understanding and gratitude and grace, just based on me opening my heart to the fact that God actually is there and he does want the best for us. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That's very touching, Kat. You mentioned as well, you know, the importance of, you know, it sounds like you do a morning and a nightly routine. That was also on your post. Do you mind sharing with our listeners? Because I think that's very, very important, not just in recovery, just in general. We should all have something we're doing in the morning and maybe typically in the evenings. Do you mind sharing what you do?
Yeah. So you want me to start with the morning and end with the night?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
So I wake up, I throw my pillow on the ground, I get on my knees and I pray to a higher power. You know, please keep me, wait, I've already said what I do there. You know, I get up, I open my shades. I'm a big believer in that sunlight. In the winter months in Boston, I actually sometimes put my ring light on right in front of me while I do my morning routine, because your brain needs that bright light. I watched the Huberman Lab, and he
yes,
said
he's awesome.
He's awesome. So I put the ring light on me. And it's funny because I'm in an office and I have sliding doors, and my kids know, like, in the morning I come in here, I shut the doors, I do my morning routine, and I have my coffee, and I do the Jesus Calling book, and I have a couple Melody Beattie books that I do. And then I read from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I read from that. And then I read any other personal development book I have. I have Gabor Mate. I'm reading right now, The Myth of Normal.
I just got it. I just got that book.
Yeah. Did you start it?
I'm on chapter 1. It's awesome so far.
Oh, so good. It's so good. My friend's listening to the Audible, but I'm more like, I need the book in my hand.
I'm the same way. I got to see it and I got to hold it. Yep.
And you know, that book, there was another one, Scattered Minds too. His books are older. And he's just now gaining popularity, and I love it. So I always have a book that's going to feed my soul and help me grow. And then I start my day, you know, I get my kids either breakfast off to school, or I jump into work at my desk. And at any moment during the day, if I feel like I'm off track, because believe me, I can fall off track. Something this morning put me off track. We're on a list for a boat mooring where we have a summer place, and for some reason the repayment wasn't paid, so we were booted off the list. So Kathryn had a little moment this morning, but at any moment during the day, you can restart your day. And sometimes I use these tools. I'll reread what I read that day. And it's funny, I just mentioned that thing because this morning, the Melanie Beattie book, the April 21st, it's The Language of Letting Go. The topic is waiting. Wait. If the time is not right. So it's all about waiting. And it's funny because when I thought about it, I said, I just read about this morning. Like, I just have to wait. It's a waiting list. I just have to wait longer. That's so funny. And then at night, it's interesting. I was just with friends, and they were actually really laughing about my night routine and how long it is. But then afterwards, she said, I feel bad we were laughing at you. You know, we were kidding, right? And I said, I don't mind at all. I think it's funny as well. And she's like, I'm really just jealous because I don't have a night routine at all. I just, you know, take my socks off and get into bed. So for nighttime routine, I always make tea. I love the Puka tea. It's Pukka. I love the kind, it's called Relax, is my favorite. So I make tea. I drink a little bit of Calm, which is this magnesium drink that I love. I turn all the lights down. I get my kids kind of ready to get settled. I do a very long skincare routine. That's part of what I do with my business, is organic, clean skincare and makeup. But my skincare routine is about 7 steps at night. And I feel like that self-care and that repetition allows your body to kind of wind down at night. So I use a red light at night, and red light has been known to help stimulate melatonin production, which is a natural hormone that your body, it rises at night so that you get good sleep. And it also helps with inflammation and immunity and cell metabolism and everything. So I use red light every single night. And I have my blue blockers on, and I read a little bit, or I might scroll on my phone. And I'm also very careful about what I'm exposed to on social media, especially at night. Especially at night. I make sure that I'm not just randomly scrolling. Like if I go on social media at nighttime, it's intentional. It's because I want to watch something that's going to, feed me and not drain me.
Yeah. I
I
love
think
that.
that's really important. Yeah. And I get good sleep and I'm grateful for that. It wasn't always like that. When I first started drinking, I think a month after I stopped, 1 week, I got maybe 3 hours sleep that whole week. About 3 weeks after I stopped drinking, and I had a conference from my work, and I flew to Florida and went to this business conference, and I had 3 hours of sleep under my belt. Well, a night, like I was sleeping like 2 or 3 hours a night. And I look back at photos and I see this woman who's like 28 days sober, and she's beautiful, and she's on the dance floor, and she's with her friends. And you never would know that she's not sleeping. You never would know she's sleeping 2 hours. You never would know that she just finally stopped drinking 3 weeks prior. And I don't know where I'm going with that, but but I just kind of looking back, I guess my point is where I'm at today. And like we said at the beginning, it wasn't always like this.
Right.
It wasn't, there were many nights that I passed out in my bed in a blackout with my makeup and my clothes and my shoes still. Like, it's just, it wasn't always like this. And I'm aware of that every single day. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I have a 20-minute long skincare routine.
Well, and I love, again, like we said earlier, you're very passionate about what you do, everything, your routines and everything. And I love that because I think where you used to be, that blackout drunk, and you don't want to be that person anymore. And you're obviously making sure that you're not going down that road ever again. And I really do admire you for that. It's really, really fun to watch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So tell us about your a pretty balance. What's that all about? Tell our listeners what that is.
Yeah, so I landed on that. I just always have had something with balance. I just think it's really interesting. Balance has always intrigued me because I never seem to be able to land it. Like I never was able to quite land the balance thing. I'm a creature of extremes. But kind of the saying that I use with a pretty balance is life isn't always pretty and it's not always balanced, but we can shoot for a pretty balance. So pretty balance is really just that aura of like, just doing the best you can, trying to keep all the pieces moving, doing nothing too extremes, just kind of being aware of all the pieces and trying to kind of recalibrate as necessary. And with that, I think I'm kind of evolving into more of a holistic sobriety approach where I've already mentioned my clean skincare and makeup. Yes. I am a huge advocate of clean living. I home birth. I had already shared that. And I really believe in the body's innate ability to heal itself. And I'm doing a lot of healing work right now myself. I actually just started EMDR, trauma release therapy.
Yep.
Yep. And I think, I firmly believe in the fact that what we put on our bodies, in our bodies, and around our bodies really impacts our emotions. It really impacts our well-being and our just sense of groundedness. So I do more holistic sobriety on my feed. Like you have already said, I'm pretty, I don't know, snarky sometimes, sassy, funny, all the things. You never know what you're going to get with my feed. But I love it. And I also love, what I love about it is you never know who's watching.
Yeah.
And it's, every now and then I love messages when they come in, and I check them all and I reply to all of them. I have a VA, but she doesn't touch my messages. I don't want her to, because I want to be there. I want to be connected with people.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes I get messages and they're so grounding, and one I got recently was a husband of somebody who was struggling with drinking, and he loved to watch my feed because it allowed him to better understand his wife's battles and what she deals with, and develop more compassion for her. And so I guess the purpose of my feed is really to just impact and inspire people to have a better understanding of the disease and the recovery piece. To eliminate all the stigma and the judging. And you know what? When I got sober, I remember I was on my floor in my house. Again, my kids were little, and I was searching online for stories. I was looking on YouTube. I was typing in sobriety story. I was searching for what we have now on Instagram. Like the message is so loud. It wasn't like this 5 years ago. And I believe that the more people that hears this message, the more people will be able to kind of evaluate their own relationship with alcohol. And I always say, you don't have to identify as an alcoholic to want to stop drinking. You just have to want to stop drinking. And a lot of people have trouble admitting they're powerless over alcohol. That feels like you're defeated, you're weak. And so I suggest that people, instead of admitting that you're powerless, explore the possibility that maybe you can surrender to the fact that you can't just have one drink. Like, just understand the truth about yourself and just surrender to that. And that's sometimes the first step. So anyway, in a nutshell, that's kind of my feed. It's all about, recovery and all that. Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
If, you're writing this book, you said it's going to come out in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Is this kind of like your whole life story? Is that what we can expect that's going to be in this book? Is it just kind of like a whole biography of your life?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of stories in the book, but with
Mhm.
stories, there's going to be a lesson to every chapter. So every chapter is going to have a new theme. The reader's going to go through an emotional journey with me and what my personal story is.
Okay.
And then there'll be a lesson in every chapter to help you kind of navigate your own feelings. And maybe you can identify to my story, and then provide hope. And again, just inspiring people to choose sober living as an option, and I've struggled with what to put in the book. Like, how honest should I be? I know my kids are going to read it someday, but at the end of the day, I've decided that, I believe truth is power, and, my past is my best asset, and I don't hide behind it. So there'll be a lot of unexpected truth in the book, but I'm going to be proud of it. And I know it's going to help a lot of people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. I'm telling you, I'm excited that you're doing that.
Thank
And
you.
what a way to leave a legacy too. I think that's wonderful. If there's someone who's listening to your voice right now, this very moment, you've already shared some pretty powerful things, but and this person's struggling, they're in a dark place, they don't know what to do, and they feel hopeless. What would you tell that person right now?
Yeah, I mean, to that person, asking for help is the first step, and just surrounding yourself with people who are going to elevate you. But understand that if you are making the right choices and doing the right thing and trying to move in the direction of recovery and healing, it's important to know that growth is a very gradual process.
Yeah.
And although it takes a long time for you to grow and heal, you recognize growth in an instant.
Yeah.
So growth is measured by how you react to situations. So it's measured from the inside, not the outside stuff. Like, I'm not talking about the house and the car and the job and the bank account. That's different type of growth. I'm talking growth in your journey, in your emotional well-being, in your health, in your mental health. That's all measured within how you react to situations. And when you find yourself reacting to situations differently than you would have 3 weeks ago, 3 months ago, 3 years ago, that's growth. And so I suggest you just look for the little signs of growth in your life. And this could be small things like driving in your car and someone cut you off and you're just like, oh, they cut me off, instead of maybe 3 months ago you flipped out. And I do believe that once you put the substances down and you have support, you grow and you heal. And I think it's dangerous to put the substances down and try to do it alone. I think it's really dangerous to do it dry, to be dry. And I know there's a lot of like dry January, sober October, all the things. And although I love the attention it brings to sobriety, it scares me because people, and I know me, if I put the substance down, if that's your only coping, it's a dangerous place to be. So if you're trying to do it alone, just get a cohort of people around you that really care about you and love you. And also remember that growth is measured within you. Nobody else can measure your growth for you. That's an inside job. And I got sick, I guess now it's a year and a half ago, I was really sick. And about 3 months later, I lost my hair. I lost 80% of my hair last year.
Really?
Yeah, these are extensions right now. I'm very open about it on social media too, because of my journey, but 80% of my hair was gone. And for all of last year, I've been trying to grow it back holistically and everything. And a few weeks ago, my son, Nikki, was using my fiance's little shavers with the razor, and he came really close to my head. And Kurt said, to put that down, you're going to cut her hair. And I looked and I kind of just like shrugged it off. And then I think I was brushing my teeth and I looked down and there was a giant chunk of hair on my sink. He had literally cut a huge piece of my hair off.
Oh,
And I
no.
looked, yeah, and I pulled, and it was my natural hair. And he said, "Mom, was that your extension?" Because my kids know, because my hair fell.
Right. Yeah.
And I said, "No, honey, it was my real hair." And he looked mortified. And I said, "It's okay." And I truly felt it was okay. There was no part of me that had that gasping anxiety that I would have had last year. And that in an instant, I knew that I had grown out from under the darkness of like losing my hair and the anxiety over that. And so anyway, nobody else can say that you've grown. It's an inside job.
Beautifully said, man. That was some powerful words there. And again, the power of connection is real. We're never more fully alive than when we're connected. And so I love those words to to that specific person who's struggling is surround yourself, call someone, reach out. There's people there that are going to help you. And, if someone wants to reach out to you, Kat, and they want to follow you on social media, they want to get in line for your book, they want to, when your podcast goes live, they're ready to go for that too. And all these great things you're doing, how could they do that? What's the best way for them to do it?
Yeah, so they can follow me on social media on A Pretty Balance on Instagram, or there's a link in my bio for all of my other groups. My coaching community is She Blooms. We haven't talked about that much, but it's actually PPS She Blooms, as if at the end of like a long love note, PPS.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Like, don't forget, don't you forget she's going to bloom type thing.
Okay.
And PPS stands for something, which I'm going to share down the road. I'm holding that in my back pocket. But so it's PPS. So it's She Blooms on Facebook. It's a free coaching community that I work specifically with women who are on a healing journey that also run a business online and want to brand themselves so that they attract the right client, the right business partner to them. And I love the work that I do there. And I'm launching a branding course in a couple months there. So you can hop in my free coaching community on Facebook. It's She Blooms. And I'm Kathryn Jarrett on Facebook. Or like we've said, you can follow me here on A Pretty Balance on Instagram.
Dang, man, you're doing a lot of amazing things. How does that feel like? I mean, where you used to be waking up blackout drunk, you're hungover, and here you are. You've got all these things. You're sending light out into the world. How does that feel?
It feels great. And tomorrow, actually, I'm going to have 18 women at my house. I'm hosting a women's retreat, a healing yoga retreat. I'm having a yoga master come here. I call her a master, and we're doing trauma release yoga in my house. And as I'm preparing for it, I feel really humbled and grateful that I'm able to provide this for other people and other women. And I feel all along the road, like, as I've already shared, I went to school for healthcare, helping people. Yeah. It's kind of just within me. And I think a lot of people in recovery, when we get better, and I'll use my Boston accent, when we get better, we want to help other people other people get better too.
I love it. I love that accent too, by the way. I think it sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. Well, Kat, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with me today and sharing your story with us and all the good things you're doing, and also getting vulnerable and sharing about your brother, David. That my heart goes out to you and your entire family. And
thank you.
I hope you know that I even though I'm on the other side of the country, I really do support everything you're doing. I've been following you ever since we met, what was that, a year ago, something like that. And I'm really impressed with all the good things you're doing. And I invite my listeners to follow you. I'll put all the links in the show notes so they'll be able to go right to you. And I can't wait to get this out to 500,000 people, and hopefully we keep growing from there too. And we can help support each other in being clean and sober and living a fruitful life that's making a difference in other people's lives.
Yeah. And my podcast hopefully will be launched in a couple months as well. That'll be the Pretty Balance podcast.
I'm excited.
The Pretty Balance Project. Yeah.
Project. Okay. Yeah, that's going to be great. And please let me know when that goes live so I can follow that. And I'm excited for that. But thank you so much. It's a pleasure to know you. And
thank you.
If there's anything I can do for you in the future as well, I would love to help out any way that I can. Any project you need, if you need to raise money for something, you just let me know. I'd be happy to help any way that I can.
Thank you. And I want to take a minute to thank you again for inviting me on the show, and thank you for what you do. I scrolled your feed not too long ago, and it's just amazing. You amplifying this message is so valuable. There's so many people that need to hear it. So thank you so much for the work that you do. And I know you're too humble to even hear this right now, but really, and and the reason why it took us so long to connect is because you help a lot of people locally. And I know one time it was a family needed you, and I got that message. It was like an hour before we were supposed to do this, and I prayed for you, and I understood that your mission is really big and strong. So thank you for doing this.
No, that means a lot, man. Thanks for softening my heart there. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much. And so, there you go, listeners. I told you that you were in for a treat today. Kathryn Jarrett. Please reach out to her. Like I said, she answers all of her messages from everyone. And I was fortunate enough, she answered my message way back then. And that's why we're talking today. So please reach out to her. And again, Kathryn, all the best to all the good things you're doing. And, Godspeed for everything you do.
Thank you so much.
All right. There you go, folks. Thanks again. Thanks for joining me. Love you guys.